What's up guys, my name is Nick and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to introduce you to an options trading journal that I wrote on Google Sheets that you can access for free and use in your own stock and options trading. While there are some excellent paid services out there, I couldn't find a good entry-level solution specifically for option traders that was available for free. Some of you may be wondering why you even need to journal your trades. I mean, most brokerages have perfectly good account and trade history ledgers available already. Sure, that's true, but there's so much more to it than just an account statement. By manually recording your process as you trade, you'll learn to hold yourself accountable, correct mistakes you've made, and take the emotion and lack of discipline back out of your trading. Before we get into it, if you enjoy the content and specifically the functionality of the spreadsheet, do me a small favor. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I release new videos every week and it helps me out a ton. With that said, let's get into my screen and I'll see you guys on the other side. Cheers. So once you click on the link in the description below, you'll be brought to this page. Simply click on make a copy. It'll then duplicate the Google Sheet and put it in your own drive. Okay, so once you've got that copy to your own drive, you should be presented with a screen exactly like mine here. The first thing to note is that I created this on rather a large monitor. You may need to adjust the size of the screen if you're looking at a smaller display. If you go up to here to view, you can simply change the zoom functionality. Smaller numbers, obviously, you'll be able to see a better part of the screen. Okay, there's just a couple of inputs that you need to actually update. The account name, you can just change it obviously to Roth IRA or whichever broker you're trading with. It's not relevant to the functionality of the sheet, so less important. You do, however, need to input the initial account net liquidation value. So this is the starting value of account. Plus you also need to input the current period start. Typically this would be like the first day of the year, the first day of the quarter, and so on. This is important because it's basically measuring the rate of return and annualizing it based on the number of days that you've actually traded and then comparing that to the performance over a 365-day period. All the other metrics that you see on the screen are calculated based on the information in the trades that you put in the blotter down here at the bottom of the screen. Now I've got a couple of example trades I'm going to show you so you can see how that works properly, but for now let's not worry about that. So just two last things before we move on to actually entering some examples in the blotter. It's just these buttons, the sort by trade ID number and sort chronologically. These buttons trigger macros that sort your trades. I'll show you how that functionality is useful in a little bit. You need to enable those macros. So when you click those for the first time, you're presented with a warning message. You need to allow the macros to actually run within the sheet. This is only on the very first time. On subsequent occasions that won't be necessary. Okay, let's get into some examples and let's see some of the functionality actually at work on the sheet. Okay, so in order to save a little bit of time in the video, I've entered 3 trades and 1 adjustment. And we'll get to see exactly why that's important later. Okay, so trade number 1, so 20th of November, and we enter a short iron condor position on UNG. We assign a trade ID number, the trade date, UNG is the ticker of course. +1 denotes long 1 contract, -1 short. The expiration date, of course, you need to input. DTE, the days to expiration, is calculated by the sheet. It just simply takes today's date and takes the difference between that and the expiration date. You need to input the strike of each of the options and whether the option is a call or a put or it's a stop position. You simply select that from the drop-down menu. These are the prices that traded, the option premium prices, or the stop price in the case of a stock entry. The latest mark is simply where that particular option closed today, or if you actually bought or sold an option back, then that would be the closing price, and a date close would be associated with that transaction. If we move to the right of the screen, all these variables here are calculated: the days in the trade, the profit and loss, and the returns. In fact, any square that has any sort of colored background is one that you won't need to enter, okay? The volatility metrics, I just like to note where IV rank, IV percentile, and the absolute levels of implied volatility are at the time of trade entry. Okay, under position type, clearly these 4 lines simply represent long call and long put positions, short call, short put positions, but collectively they form short iron condor. Okay, it's not necessarily obvious looking at just a single line, so I always put this in so it's clear if it's part of a larger position. Under the trade notes here, this is an important section, okay? Include notes on your setup and entry year details. What are the deltas on your short options, for example? Why did you choose the expiration that you chose? What profit targets do you have? What's the maximum risk for the trade? How will you get out? Do you have your stops in place? What will your profit-taking exits be? All these things you should note prior to entering the trade. Okay, so on the 21st of November, we have our second trade, trade ID number 2. It's a long call on American Airlines. It's a 12-strike call. We pay $2.20 for it, and it closes the day up at $3. Again, the same metrics are calculated, and I encourage you again to go through and input the relevant trade notes for that position. On the 22nd of November, trade ID number 3, it's just a purchase of 5 long SPY stock. The reason that I've included this basically is to show you that with a stock, obviously expiration and option strike are not relevant fields, so you should leave those blank. Don't put anything in these fields, otherwise it affects the calculation for the profit and loss of a stock position. Notice also in our pretend scenario here, our iron condor position, the downside is tested, and as a result of that, the call spread, so that would be the short 11.5, long 13 call spread, goes to just 2 cents, and we buy that back. Okay, so it's the 22nd of November, we enter the closing date here. Come the opening next day then, we're going to sell another credit spread, another call credit spread on UNG. Obviously we're going to roll the position down there, the strikes will need to be low. So what we're looking at here is the short 9.5, 11 call credit spread, which will now convert this iron condor into an iron butterfly. Now importantly, this new credit spread is still part of the same initial iron condor trade. It's an adjustment. We've bought back the original short call credit spread, and we're selling another lower strike credit spread. Okay, so this adjustment is part of the original trade, so it's labeled with the same trade ID number. If we go back to the sort by trade ID number just here, we can run the script and it reorganizes these, so now you can see that all trade ID number 1s are all located together. And this is useful because we can now see more easily what the actual net profit or loss on that trade potentially is. So for example, if we go over to the profit and loss column and drag this down here, you actually see in the bottom here, you can see the net sum of the total of all those 6 trades. It's minus $15, so of course this trade is actually running at a slight loss right now. Similarly, if we go back up here and look at the number of trades, for example, we can see despite the fact that there are 8 entries in the journal down here, the spreadsheet recognizes that there are only really 3 trades. So it considers the iron condor, this loser, as one separate trade, and that's what this $15 loss is right here. It happens that we've only got one loss, it's losing $15, that's not only the maximum, it's also the average. If you then want to return to a chronological listing of your trades, simply click the sort chronologically button, and again it puts them back into order by trade date. Okay guys, that should just about wrap it up. I think that covers most of the basic functionality. If you do have any questions though, of course, please feel free to drop them in the comments section below and I'll take a look there. Cheers. If you made it this far, you made it to the end, and your support's very, very much appreciated. You can access the Google Sheet via a link in the description below. If there is sufficient demand, I'll be happy to add functionality going forward, so be sure to let me know in the comments what other metrics you'd like to see included in future versions. Again, if you enjoyed the video, you can subscribe to the channel below and watch other option-related content on this channel by clicking somewhere over there. Until the next one guys, take it easy, cheers.